is a beautiful, frosty, -4 degrees Fahrenheit morning here on the Miramichi River in New Brunswick, Canada. And I'm here to talk to you first-time homesteaders. You guys that have just bought your land for the first time, you're moving into this. This is not for the old dogs that have been at this for a long time. This is information for the folks that are just starting out on their journey. So you buy a piece of land and it's got some forest onto it. What do you do with it? Conventional thought would be allow a industrial company to come in and clear cut your land. Bad choice, real bad choice. That is not environmentally friendly. It is not sustainable. It's not a wise choice. You go from having a nice piece of forest that looks like this in the background to having a field of stumps and shattered brush. I'm going to show you options that you can use as a small-time homesteader or as a woodlot owner. Things that you can do to take value off of your land, earn money from your land, without destroying the land that you own. Now, everybody, of course, we all want to make some money. We all want to have a little cash in the pocket, a little something to spend at the store. That's natural. That's a necessity of life. So what can you do with a woodlot to get some money from it without having to destroy it? Conventional forestry believes that the only way to manage a woodlot is to clear cut. You allow the trees to get up to 40 years old or so, clear cut everything, replant or let the natural growth come back, wait another 50, 60 years, cut it again, flatten it, take everything out. If they do plant, they plant a monocrop forest. They destroy the diversity of the woodland that's existing, and you take off a crop that's just geared toward feeding an industrial mill. I'm here to tell you there's another way to do it. I'm on a piece of land that my family has owned for, well, I'm the 6th generation owner of this land. We've been here since 1820. We have never once clear cut a piece of property. We take lumber, firewood from our land each year. We heat our homes with it. We sell some of the lumber. We saw some of it in our own mill. We use it for construction of barns, sheds, outbuildings, repairs on buildings on our farm. And we have never once flattened a piece of ground to the point that we looked at it and said, look what we done to that one. So let's take a little look around here. What we have here is a mix of coniferous and deciduous forest. Right here is that's a big red maple. We've got red spruce right beside it. If we walk down through here, we're going to see a mixture. There's white birch standing right over there. Another smaller white birch here. This is a balsam fir. Another balsam fir right there. If you're familiar with your Christmas trees, that's the Christmas tree right there. This one here is a small white pine. So in a forest like this here, where you've got a mixture of trees, you've got a few options available to you. Number one, of course, there's always the choice that you just leave it standing and you don't take anything from it. If it's your wish to have a piece of ground that you can go on to, just to hike or to use as a piece of nature, natural woods, then yeah, you'd leave your woods alone. But if you want to make a little bit of money off it, there's a lot of options that are available to you with a piece of ground like this. Number one, of course, your hardwoods, like the birches, the maple, they're a source of firewood, of course. With your softwood trees, you've got different markets depending on your location. Now, right here in New Brunswick, we have sawmills that saw out studwood. Studwood would be, well, they would take a smaller diameter tree like this balsam fir right here. That's big enough to make studwood. Now, every mill is going to have their specifications. And if you're in an area like New Brunswick here, we have woodlot owner associations. You can go on their website and you can find lists of the specifications that each sawmill accepts of what they want for wood that's sawn and taken into their mills. Studwood here in New Brunswick is smaller diameter trees like this, up to about, I think studwood stops at about 15 to 18 inches on the stump. Some mills take smaller studwood than that. Generally a 5-inch top, and what that means is you cut the studwood at 8 or 9 foot long, depending on the length that the mill wants, and the top end of the piece has to be at least 5 inches in diameter. Saw logs. Saw logs is the next market that we would have for this wood. Now, some of these bigger trees that you see down in here, they would go for saw log size. A saw log is larger diameter. If we're looking at this spruce right here, that would be a nice saw log tree right there. So you've got a diameter there that's probably 10 to 12 inches on the butt, and that tree would go up. You could probably take two 12-foot saw logs out of that. Saw logs, of course, the sawmills might ask for a larger diameter top. A saw log has to be fairly straight. It has to be free of porcupine chews and no big sweeps in it. That's another option if you want it to cut saw logs. If you're going to saw lumber out for yourself, you might be able to take some value from a tree that maybe a commercial sawmill wouldn't want, or maybe you want to pick the best of what you have to saw out for yourself and sell the remainder. Sometimes sawmills they frown on that, but that's always an option. Right over here, there's a big old maple right there that come down. We'll gather that one up before the winter is out. Anything that falls like that, if you have a piece of woods land, you can gather that up for firewood. That tree is probably, well, he's been caught in a windstorm, twisted off back there at the butt. But if we look at the top of this tree, the smaller limbs are still intact on it. That tells me that tree has been down for less than a year. So if you're walking through your woodland and you see something like that, you can harvest that and take it out with an eye towards improving your property or reducing your loss. If that tree was left a few more years, of course, it'll rot right into the ground, and then you lose the value out of it. But firewood, studwood, saw logs, that's all stuff that you can realize some money from. So what do we look for when we go to cut a stand of wood? Well, this stand right here has a little story to it. If you can see that, that's the remains of a stump. In 1970, this piece of ground suffered a blowdown. There was a big gale or the tail end of a hurricane. Came in out of the north up in there. It laid down probably 15 acres of woods here. My father came in 1970, 71. They cut up as much of it as they could before the bugs and the worms get into it, and salvaged what they could. But as happens sometimes when you get a big blowdown like that, you get thickets. This little stand of yellow birch here, this stuff is just coming to the size that it would almost make firewood. What we'll do with this is we'll thin out anything that's less than top quality. This maple right here, got that crooked butt, it's going up. It's never going to make saw logs. That crook in the butt was probably formed by a tree falling on it when it was a sapling. Then we get other stuff like this yellow birch, big crotch in it right there. Once again, that'll never amount to much. So what we do when we come into a stand of firewood like this is we look for the trees that aren't the best quality, and we'll take those ones out first. Now, along with taking out firewood, we're taking out some saw logs. You can see back in there, the cutter has got a big spruce down. It's probably close to 2 feet on the butt. limbing that up. But in the course of getting the tractor into that, we've got to put a hole back through here. So when we put a garden trail in, we look for the places that we're going to damage the least amount of marketable trees. If there's small stuff that we want to leave, spruce, birch, maple, anything that we want to grow to a mature tree, we look to avoid that when we build a trail. So going right through there, straight ahead from the camera, there's a bit of an opening there. There's a few small yellow birch. There's a dead, rotted off one beside that little balsam fir. Kind of an opening right there. That's what we look for when we're building a trail. Now, I cut the trail in through here already. And what I've done was I just looked for the open places. So, luckily we were able to put a trail in through right here without taking out too awful much of what is trees that we'd want left for the future. There's our machine that we use for yarding. 8200 Kubota, a Fransgard logging winch on it. When you're cutting a garden trail for a tractor, you want to make sure you get the stumps down, get the brush out from underneath. The last thing you need is something Jill poking up and taking a hose off or jabbing into something that it shouldn't be jabbing into. You want to get your trail fairly clean. That's one thing to consider when you're getting wood out. What you pay out in repairs is a complete and total loss from your logging operation. So, a good trail is essential. Now, once we get this opening up into here, so that we can get at that spruce, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start laying down some of this mature wood. Now, we've got a lot of spruce here. This guy is about 12 inches on the stump. There's one right there that's 14-inch range on the stump. Nice stand over here. Another nice one right there. So what we're going to do is just come in here and take out, wow. This is done by Buck Deer. He's got in here sharpening his horns in the fall. Just in off the edge of that clear cut. Now that clear cut, that's not our doings. On my east boundary here, that's Crown land owned by the government. Industrial Forestry came in here a few years back and they flattened everything on that. All that's left there now is a stand of pin cherry, some little saplings here and there. Nothing much of any value. That's not how I think sustainable forestry should be done. I know that we've got land that we've harvested 11, 12 times in the past 100 years. We've never left land looking like that. That pin cherry has zero value. There's nothing to that. And very little in the way of spruce or fir seedlings coming up in that after, that's been cut probably 12 years. And a nice set of moose tracks up through there. Moose coming into our woods land looking for a place to get under a tree out of the storm. Here's the boundary tree. This is what our forest is. Now, one of the problems with having them come in beside you and clear cut this way, look at the amount of blowdowns that I'm having to deal with. See, if this land over here had been cut sustainably, come in and take out the biggest stuff, take out the stuff that was lesser quality, take it down the way that land used to be cut. Because at one time here in New Brunswick, it was illegal to cut a spruce tree on Crown land under a 12-inch stump, and you couldn't cut a balsam fir under a 10-inch stump, which meant there would have been a lot of trees left there to mature and size up. And instead, when they come in and take everything down, then anybody that's a neighbor to Crown land, this is what you deal with. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars of damage, and the worst part is of the 500 and some acres that we have here, we're bordered by Crown land on the north all the way around. This lot here is bordered on the east and west by Crown, and our next woodlot above this is bordered east and west by Crown. And so this is what we have to deal with. Their greed to take everything results in our damage. But putting that aside, what we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're going to look for guys like this right here. This spruce is by the top. The top is a little thin on this. He's got that kind of a bollock thing going on there. That's probably the size that that tree was when this big blowdown occurred here back in 1970. And he's got pinched off or twisted some way there. That's a low quality tree, so that one there is going out to the sawmill. We're going to take some of these hardwood. Some of this birch and stuff is getting to be just a nice size for handling. Hard to split, great big hardwood. So we look for some of the smaller stuff that just has to be halved in two. So that's how we're going to do the harvest here. We're going to come in here with an eye to improving this forest. We're going to try and leave it better when we go out than what it was when we started. There's some of this stuff here, like this blowdown snarl happened here. This is from the wind coming in off the clear cut. What I like to do when I come into one of these places, the first thing I do is I look at that fir and see if there's any chance that that fir still has salvageable wood in it. Now there's a good chance that it does, because if you look at this, there's still needles on those limbs. Those needles will drop off the first year. The second year you'll lose these little twigs that the needles were on. The third year you'll be back to stuff like this dropping off, stuff this size. So you can pretty well judge the age of a blowdown by the condition of the top. So this tree has been down less than a year, and there's a good chance that we can take at least a couple of pieces of studwood out of that if we can get it down safely. These other little trees like this, what I like to do when I'm going through cutting on a piece of ground, I like to lay this stuff all down, get it down in contact with the soil, let it rot into the soil and feed the next generation of trees. I don't particularly like the looks of something like this. I like that tangle to be laid down on the ground. By that small stuff going on the ground, it not only feeds the trees, it provides cover and housing for rodents, small mammals, birds, stuff that needs protection for their nest or protection for getting under the snow in the wintertime, especially when the snow is deep. If these trees are laid down, they'll actually provide cavities under the snow that the mice and weasels and all that kind of stuff can run in. So I like to just get that stuff on the ground. Let nature do its job there. So, how do we take value off this piece of ground? Our value number one is in firewood. The firewood, yarded out, cut, split, is worth $250 a cord. Dry it, sell it in the fall. These spruce logs like this, the spruce logs have a value somewhere in the range of $335 a thousand. 1,000 board feet of lumber. That's a board foot of lumber is 1 inch by 1 inch by 12. That's the scale that's used to measure this. Studwood is a little bit less. Studwood is the smaller diameter stuff. We don't cut a lot of studwood, but we will be taking some in order to clean up tops and whatnot. Studwood is a little bit lower value than the saw logs. It's cut 8 and 9 foot long. Studwood, of course, is sold, well, it used to be sold by the cord. Now it's sold by the metric ton. Everything goes by the ton now. But the studwood, of course, cut 8 and 9 foot is just for studding for houses. This is another thing we're going to look for. There's a damage from a fallen tree in the past, maybe even back during that blowdown. The side off of that maple That maple will eventually rot out from that scar on the side of it. I see another scar over here on this tree. Got a spruce right here, and that one has actually gone, that one's gone hollow on the butt. Probably not going to be anything salvageable out of this tree. That cavity there. Now, you can call me strange, but I'm the kind of guy that would leave that tree standing for the simple fact that that cavity will provide nesting, or may have already provided nesting, for chickadees, nuthatches, some of the other small birds that inhabit the forest here. Birds have to eat too. The woodpeckers will get into that tree, and they'll the ants, of course, will get up into that from that rotten wood, and then the woodpeckers will come in. The woodpeckers make cavities for the little birds. The little birds have to have a place to nest. The way I am, I'm inclined I'd leave a tree like that standing. I know industrial forestry would like to see that flattened, but I can spend all day long harvesting good, clean, nice spruce like that. So I can leave this for the birds. Let them have a nesting place. Another thing we're going to look for is dead tops. Now, there's a white pine right over there. That guy's got, he's got a pretty good top on him there. But there is one just out here, and we can't see it. Oh, there it is right there. If you can look right through the crown. That big top right there. There's a white pine there he's died out on the top. That's something we're going to look for. The white pine has a higher value than the spruce trees as far as selling it, if you can get the grade. Now, they don't always grade them well. Sometimes you sell #1 logs and they turn out a lot lower grade. But there's that guy right there. He's got a problem going on in the top. So what we're going to do with that guy is take him out, saw him out on our own sawmill. I've actually got a chance to sell some pine cladding for a guy for putting inside a house. That's where that one's going to go. So that tree right there, we'll saw out about, roughly $1,000 a thousand, so $1 a board foot. Good quality product. My camera's freezing up, so I'm going to shut down here for just a minute. Okay, the snow is starting to come horizontal, coming out of the east. An east wind is a cold storm, so we're going to call it a day. It's a little past 3:30 today, and we've got a few twitches of logs out, twitch of hardwood. We're going to call her a day, shut her down. She's a little too cold in here now, probably minus, I'm guessing at least minus 10, and that snow coming right out of the east, so that's for a day for us. Here we go. Okay, the snow is starting to come horizontal, coming out of the east. An east wind is a cold storm, so we're going to call it a day. It's a little past 3:30 today, and we've got a few twitches of logs out, twitch of hardwood. We're going to call her a day, shut her down. She's a little too cold in here now, probably minus, I'm guessing at least minus 10, and that snow coming right out of the east, so that's for a day for us. Here we go.